Look at the engine in a modern SUV. It is made of thin aluminum and plastic, designed to last just long enough for the warranty to expire. But decades ago, one rogue American corporation did the unthinkable. They built the IMMORTAL, an 800-pound V8 that outlived its own company, the terrifyingly overbuilt International Harvester SV series. International Harvester did not build normal cars. They built massive farm tractors and heavy commercial equipment. So when they decided to build a passenger vehicle to fight Jeep and Chevy, they did not design a lightweight motor. They literally took a massive chunk of cast iron meant for combine harvesters and shoved it into a civilian SUV. It used solid steel gears instead of cheap timing chains. It was so heavy it would snap a modern truck frame in half. But there is a dark, hidden irony to this indestructible machine. Did the engineers at the Indianapolis engine plant accidentally build a motor so mathematically perfect at refusing to die that it helped destroy their own billion-dollar empire? International Harvester was never a car company. It was a continent of steel and smoke, a living force that stretched from the blacktop of Fort Wayne, Indiana, to the furnace-lit corridors of the Indianapolis engine plant. In the 1960s, you could stand on the roof of Plant 1 and see nothing but red iron, rows of tractors, combines, and heavy trucks lined up like artillery, waiting for shipment. 10,000 men and women punched the clock at Fort Wayne every morning. The place ran on steam piped in from its own power plant, and the ground shook with the weight of production. This was the heavy-duty truck capital of the world. The Indianapolis engine plant was a foundry cathedral. Here, the SV series, International's so-called small V8, was born. There was nothing small about it. The 392 cubic inch block alone tipped the scales at 765 pounds, dry. Fully dressed, with cast iron manifolds bolted on, it neared 800 pounds, a slab of high nickel cast iron that would snap a modern pickup frame in half. These engines weren't built for speed. They were built for the long pull, the endless grind. The line workers knew it. The engineers knew it. You could hear it in the way the cam gears meshed, the way the whole assembly hummed under load. International Harvester's reach went beyond the fields. Their trucks hauled grain and gravel across every back road in America. Their combines tore through frozen dirt in the Dakotas. Their badge meant you were driving something built to survive. When the company decided to put a civilian truck on the road, they didn't design down to a price. They scaled up from the farm. The SV series wasn't a car engine. It was agricultural artillery, cast and assembled by hands that understood the meaning of endurance. Inside those plants, you could feel the pressure, the mass of iron, the heat, the sweat of 1,000 welders and machinists. Every bolt, every bearing, every crankshaft was built to last longer than the men who made it. That's the scale you're dealing with. Not a car, not a toy, a monument to American industrial power, forged in the heartland and stamped with the weight of survival. They called it the small V8, but that was a lie told on the shop floor. In 1961, International Harvester rolled out the Scout, a slab-sided bruiser built for the back 40 and the Badlands. 2 years later, the Travelall thundered onto highways and farm roads, a rolling fortress for families who needed to tow more than groceries. Under their hoods, International dropped in the SV series 304, 345, and 392 cubic inches of agricultural artillery, straight from the same Indianapolis engine plant that fed the fields. These were not engines borrowed from cars. They were forged for tractors, combines, and medium-duty trucks, machines that lived and died by torque, not by speed. You pop the hood on a Scout or Travelall, and it is like staring into the heart of a combine. The SV series block is a monument, cast iron so dense you could feel the heat radiate through your boots. The 304 was the little brother, if you can call 304 cubic inches little. The 345 was the workhorse, the one you trusted to haul hay, seed, or a trailer full of cattle up a muddy grade. And the 392, that was the king, an engine that weighed more than some entire cars, designed to run all day at governed RPM, pulling a plow through frozen dirt while the snow blew sideways. International did not bother to make it pretty. The SV series did not care about chrome or quarter-mile times. It cared about survival. Every cubic inch was built for the long haul, thick walls, heavy crank, gear-driven timing, and a cooling system meant to outlast the men who poured the iron. You could bolt one into a Scout, fire it up, and hear the echo of 1,000 harvests. In a world of passenger cars made for comfort and speed, International gave us a civilian truck with a farm heart. It was an act of industrial defiance, hiding a tractor soul inside a family wagon. That is why the SV series endures, not because it was fast, but because it was built to survive anything. The iron never forgot where it came from. Set an SV series 392 on a certified scale, and the dial groans past 750 pounds, dry. That's before you bolt on the cast iron manifolds, before you fill it with 6 quarts of oil and enough coolant to drown a small block Chevy. The block alone, bare, clocks in at 765 pounds. By the time you've dressed it for work, carburetor, starter, alternator, water pump, all the iron and steel accessories, it pushes right up to 800. That's not a number you find in a car magazine. That's a number you feel in your back when you try to move it. This isn't light-duty iron. The SV series was poured thick, with block walls you could measure in fractions of an inch. High nickel cast iron, straight from the Indianapolis engine plant's foundry, made the block so dense you could strike it with a ball-peen hammer and it would ring like a bell. These blocks weren't made to save weight. They were made to survive heat, friction, and the kind of rotational mass that would shatter a lesser engine. The main caps are so massive you need both hands to lift one. The crankshaft is a forged steel club, spinning on bearings the size of a man's wrist. Most modern V8 engines, aluminum, thin-walled, built for speed, barely tip the scale at 500 pounds. The SV series outweighs them by a quarter ton. That extra mass isn't wasted, it's insurance. It's the difference between an engine that runs 100,000 miles and one that runs through generations. You can see it in the way the block resists flex under full load, the way the heads stay flat after years of heat cycles, the way the bottom end shrugs off abuse that would send a lighter engine to the scrap pile. Every inch of the SV series is overbuilt. The intake manifold alone weighs as much as some entire 4-cylinder engines. The exhaust manifolds are thick, rough, and heavy, meant to channel heat away from the block, not just to save a few pounds. Even the bolts are bigger, the threads deeper, the steel harder. This is agricultural artillery, not automotive jewelry. When you lift the SV series out of a Scout or Travelall, you don't do it with a chain and a prayer. You need a gantry crane, or better yet, a forklift. The mass is a statement. International Harvester didn't care about weight savings. They cared about survival. They built an engine you couldn't kill with neglect, with heat, with hard work. The SV series is a monument to American iron, a block so heavy, so dense, so brutally overbuilt, it outlived the very company that cast it. Crack open the timing cover on an SV series and you don't find a chain. You find solid steel gears, teeth cut deep, faces wide, a mesh that sounds like a distant turbine when the engine idles. No slack, no stretch, no surrender. This is gear drive, not for show, but for war. Camshaft and crank locked together by industrial intent, not by the whim of a spring-loaded tensioner. In a world of stamped timing sets and plastic guides, International Harvester gave us a cam drive meant to last longer than the men who machined it. The whine isn't a defect, it's a promise. There's a reason these engines never rattled themselves to death. Steel gears don't give up, even when the oil's thick with carbon and the coolant's half mud. The gear faces are wide enough to swallow a coin. Under load, they barely flinch. The camshaft itself is a billet of American steel, spinning on bearings big enough to belong in a combine, not a family truck. You can listen to a contact mic on the cover and hear the whine, a mechanical hymn, low and steady, echoing through the block like a bell ringing in a cathedral of iron. But the real secret is in the cooling. Most engines send coolant through the block first, then up to the heads. Not here. The SV series uses a reverse flow system. Coolant enters at the front, but instead of flooding the block, it's forced through internal steel tubes, traveling straight to the cylinder heads. The hottest metal gets cooled first. Only then does the water drop down to pick up the rest of the heat from the cylinders. It's an agricultural solution born from the world of tractors and harvesters, where engines run pinned at governed RPM for days, not minutes. The heads never warp. The gaskets don't fail. The block shrugs off 1,000 heat cycles like it's nothing. Inside the iron, you find no shortcuts, just thick walls, deep water jackets, and a path for coolant that's more like a river than a trickle. Even the water pump is oversized, spinning on a shaft as thick as your thumb. The result is an engine that runs cool under load, hour after hour, season after season. Overheating isn't a concern, it's a rumor. The SV series was built to pull plows through frozen ground, to idle in the sun with a hay baler hooked behind. It was never meant to die in traffic. This is how you build something that endures. Gear-driven cam, reverse flow cooling, every choice made for survival, not for speed or fashion. That's why these engines outlived the company that made them. That's why, 50 years on, you can still hear the gear whine on a cold morning, still feel the block's heat in your hands. The iron remembers. The iron endures. No one ever paired the SV series block with something light-duty. International Harvester understood the demands of their engines. The so-called small V8 was never matched to a car gearbox. Instead, it got the Borg-Warner T19 wide ratio manual, a transmission built for real punishment. Its cast-iron case feels like it belongs in a locomotive. The gears are cut thick, first gear so low you could idle a loaded Scout up a quarry wall. Shifting the T19 is deliberate, every throw heavy, the lever moving with the weight of machinery. The gear whine rises and falls, echoing the engine's own metallic rhythm. Cam gears up front, transmission gears in back, all locked together in a chain of steel. The T19 was not exclusive to International, but no one else paired it with a V8 block this heavy. 4 forward speeds, with a first gear ratio deep enough to drag a plow or pull a stump. The SV392 delivered 316 pound-feet of torque at just 2,400 revolutions per minute, and the T19 was built to take that kind of abuse, year after year. Oil thick as honey, a clutch disc big as a dinner plate, these were not car parts. They were commercial grade, designed for dump trucks, grain haulers, and snowplows. International did not water down their hardware for civilian trucks. They brought the job site to the road. For those who preferred an automatic, there was the Chrysler 727 Torque Flight. This 3-speed automatic earned its reputation in taxis and delivery vans before ever seeing a Scout or Travelall. The 727 was overbuilt, planetary gears thick as your thumb, sprags and bands sized for real payloads. International specified the heavy-duty version, with extra clutch packs and a deeper pan to keep the high nickel iron cool. Slam it from drive to reverse with a trailer hitched, and the SV just grunted. The transmission shrugged off the shock because it was built for it. SV Series block, T19 or 727 Torque Flight. A drivetrain that never flinched. Gearboxes as legendary as the engine, every piece chosen for survival. Proof isn't found in glossy brochures or dyno charts from car magazines. Proof comes from the bench, from the men who've spent their lives with iron under their fingernails and the roar of hard labor in their ears. You want to know if the SV series is immortal? Ask the wrench who's pulled the heads on a 392 after 500,000 miles and found the crosshatch still on the cylinder walls. Ask the restorer who's run a 345 on the dyno for hours, loading it down until the coolant boils in the tank and the block just shrugs, oil pressure steady, gears whining like a distant siren. The torque curve on these engines isn't a curve at all, it's a plateau. The 392 hits its peak at 316 pound-feet, right at 2,400 RPM, and just sits there. That's not a racing number. That's the number you want when you're dragging a loaded grain cart through sticky spring mud, or idling up a mountain trail with a winch cable stretched to the snapping point. These engines don't care about redline. They're governed for survival, not for speed. You can hold them at 2000 rpm for a day and a night, and the block just gets warm, never hot, never frantic. It's the same philosophy that kept tractors running through harvest after harvest. I've seen SV345s come out of Scouts with odometers rolled past 400,000 miles, original bearings, cranks still in spec, cam lobes barely worn. There are 304 engines running in old-school buses, still making their morning rounds 50 years on. At the shows, you hear the stories. An old farm truck with a 392, never rebuilt, still pulling hay wagons every fall. A travelall that crossed the Rockies a dozen times, never once overheating, never once left behind. These aren't tall tales. They're the gospel of heavy equipment. Every time I put a mic on a running SV, the gear whine comes through like a hymn. It's the sound of survival. You can't fake it. You can't kill it. That's not just proof. That's immortality, forged in the heartland, still echoing down the line. November 1st, 1979. The Fort Wayne assembly plant fell silent. 10,000 men and women, welders, machinists, lifers, walked out into the gray Indiana cold, and the gates slammed shut behind them. The UAW strike hit like a hammer, and the giant began to bleed. $600 million lost almost overnight. The lines that once shook with the weight of tractors and Scouts stood dead, steam drifting from pipes that would never heat another morning. Indianapolis Engine Plant 2 choked down to a whisper. The SV series, cast for war and harvest, was left stranded on the assembly floor, iron hearts with no bodies to fill. The company staggered, hemorrhaging cash at a rate no machine could endure. The strike did not just wound International Harvester, it cut straight to the bone. The heavy-duty truck capital of the world was dying, and the iron could do nothing but wait. The gates at Fort Wayne locked for good in 1983. The Indianapolis Engine Plant, where the SV series was born, fell silent soon after. You walk those empty corridors now, broken windows, rusted conveyors, the heavy smell of old oil still hanging in the air, and it is like the ghosts of 10,000 machinists are still at their stations. The presses are frozen mid-stroke. The steam pipes are cold. But somewhere out past the chain link and weeds, an SV392 coughs to life. You can hear the gear whine, faint and distant, like the last hymn of American iron. They buried International Harvester. The blocks keep running, serial pads stamped with numbers nobody remembers, iron hearts that refuse to die. The factories are gone. The iron survives. For a moment, there is nothing but the echo of gears, then silence, heavy as a tomb. Stand in the shadow of what the Indianapolis Engine Plant forged. Pure, high-nickel iron, cam gears biting solid steel, mass meant to pull harvesters through frozen dawn. International Harvester bled out at Fort Wayne, but their small V8 engines run on, too stubborn to quit. Today, every 392 still thumping down a back road is a ghost, industrial, immortal, and haunting the empty empire that built it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below.